Hello, and welcome to the Splain. Dan Rothenberg and Joe Klosik, two guys trying to figure it out. Not the right wing, not the brosphere. Left of center, with humor and empathy.
Hello, Joe. How you doing?
I'm good, buddy. Happy
All
New
right.
Year.
Happy New Year to you. It's 2025 and welcome to the Splain.
Woohoo! We made it.
We made it and we are off and running with our podcast. Today we're going to talk about critical race theory, and I'm going to be presenting my pitch why I want my son to learn critical race theory. First of all, I'm going to do a little experiment. I've decided I'm going to grow like a bro Don Jr. beard.
Why? Why, Dan? Why?
They're all over the brosphere. Do you ever watch like a podcast thing? It's like 5 of these guys. They all look the same.
So you're going to grow one over time.
Yes, I'm going to grow it over time.
All right, I'm going to clip mine away over time.
Okay.
So as you become more MAGA bro on your facial hair, I'm going to become less Viking accountant.
Okay, so you got your own thing going. You've always I have never been a facial hair guy as long as you've known me. I'm going for it, and we're going to report as it comes into shape. And I want to see if
you think people will treat you differently.
Yes, I don't know. Maybe people will treat me differently. Maybe I'll think they're treating me differently.
Will you be in line like at Starbucks and you'll be like, "Excuse me"?
Yeah,
I'm
we're going to see. We're going to see.
And...
Is it the chicken or the egg? Is it the beard or the douche?
I am looking forward to this fascinating sociological
So we'll see as viewers, you'll notice as we check in, it's going to start to form, and I'll be reporting in on that.
But let's be honest, Dan, you're probably going to have to do something because we do this once a week. You're a manly man. You're going to probably, like, by tonight have a full-on beard. You're going to have to slow it down.
I have no idea. This is
you could show up next week with a red MAGA cap on.
I might.
Wow.
My mind. See, this is the Splain, Joe. Open-mindedness.
Oh, it sounds more like closing the mindedness.
Okay. I don't even know the difference.
I
don't know what's going to happen, but we are broing it.
Okay.
Okay.
If you come in with like a golf shirt on with the beard, that'll be awesome.
It could absolutely happen. In fact, my plan was to get an electric car soon. Will that happen? I don't know. We'll see where the beard leads me. I don't even know.
Cybertruck, probably a Cybertruck.
Yeah. Okay, now before we take up all of our time and ignore
the real issues,
critical race theory, how was you being a working comic? It was New Year's Eve.
It was New Year's Eve, and I had a show, baby, which was awesome.
That's always the mark of how your year went. If you're working New Year's Eve as a comedian, you're doing okay.
Yeah, you're doing okay. And I've been lucky to, for some brief period of time there, we like to call rehab. I was not working New Year's Eve, but this was a good gig. It was a beautiful theater out in Castro Valley, a performing arts center. Brian Copeland and friends. Brian Copeland, mainstay of San Francisco, been around forever, put the show together. Great lineup. I'm right in the middle, so I had a cake slot. Just if you can't kill in the middle.
How much time did you do?
20 minutes.
Nice.
So everybody was like it was 7 o'clock to 9:30. Everyone's doing 20 minutes, so we get in early.
Nice adult show. Everybody's
nice
home.
Adult show. Get out early.
In bed by New Year's.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Perfect. Here's what happened though. So I've been doing this bit lately where I'm throwing glitter. And there's actual glitter. And the reason behind it is
you've changed.
Look, I've never thought of myself as a prop comic.
Me neither. Okay.
I didn't know I was going to do this, but I had a situation where an audience member came up to me after a show, and he was not happy with what he considered to be a very left-leaning liberal stand-up set. And the words that he said to me is like, so what do you want? You want every time someone says San Francisco to throw glitter or something? And I thought about doing that on stage, but then I thought about actually having glitter when I said it.
And did
And
that make sense to you?
no, it made no sense to me. It
Okay.
made, I think he was equating the idea of like, we need to celebrate
Celebrate,
San
yeah.
Francisco and queer glitter. I don't know how
Yeah.
those go together.
It's like you get it, but you don't it's not well thought out, but I
No,
got it.
no. But
Yeah.
to him, it was like, ooh, this is gonna hurt. What I'm
Yeah,
about to
it's
say, yeah. It probably didn't help that I laughed when he said that because it seemed so ill-constructed.
uh-huh.
And then he got even angry. But I thought, okay,
Where
I
was this when this
this was out. Do we bash entire other places? I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Well, this was out in Modesto,
Oh,
which,
yeah, okay.
I mean, I do know some people from Modesto that are great. I do know some comics from Modesto that are great, but I think even they would say that, yeah, Modesto has a reputation
You're
for being,
still doing those gigs
well,
in Modesto.
hey, it paid
Nothing's
very well. It
changed.
paid very well.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was the irony. I was like,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, you're always going to get somebody in the audience that's upset. I mean, that's just comedy 101 in today's modern age, you
Right.
know? And I didn't even think I was doing anything that left leaning. I just thought I was relating some funny stuff. So I like to
Mhm.
report. And by report, I mean oftentimes on stage, my material is I overheard this conversation, or this happened to me today, or this. So this guy says the thing about glitter, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start doing it on stage. And I started carrying glitter with me on stage and doing
Mhm.
the bit, and then it turned into a
So you do
larger
the bit
bit.
and then the
Yeah,
report a guy told me this about the bit and now I'm going to do
yeah,
it. So
yeah.
he's giving you material. You're
He's
just
giving me material. I mean,
it's
that's it. There's
yeah,
no negative feedback. It's just
right.
material,
Right.
right? And then I had a situation where I actually had the glitter in my pocket from doing the bit, and I was on a BART train, and this guy approached me, and instead of like a ninja bomb, I had what I like to call now this tolerance bomb.
Uh-huh.
So I just threw the glitter up in the air, and he just like didn't know how to didn't know what to make of that, and that gave me
Okay.
enough time to just remove myself from the situation. So
That's hilarious. So it's kind of like the Joker with
yes, exactly,
right.
exactly. So it's become this long bit now, and I'm loving doing it. Well,
Mhm.
so I'm on stage and I'm
That's
doing
really
this.
funny. So you glitter your way out of things.
I glitter my way out of stuff, you
Yeah.
know. It's like in the joke, I'm like someone comes up to me on the street and goes like, I think Trump has some points, and I just, glitter everywhere, and they're like, what's happening? And I think a unicorn is present,
Right. And then
whatever.
you're gone.
And then you're gone.
Right.
They're like, who was that man of tolerance? They don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know, right?
Kaiser Sensei. All right. All right.
So I'm throwing the glitter on stage, and a guy in the front row, just like a few guys over, he flips me the bird. Flips me the bird, right? And then he stands
Wait a minute.
up.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Flips you the bird. Was it a was it a dry one? Was it a
Oh no, it
aggressive
was it
one?
was it was an aggressive, like, he put his face into it.
You were
Like,
doing
oh
you were doing the bit,
yes.
threw up the glitter.
Yeah. Yeah. He got some glitter on him. I don't know. Something happened in his childhood. It triggered something.
Uh-huh.
He really doesn't
It
like
was
glitter.
yeah, something
Something happened,
things
right?
happen with a clown.
We don't want to know.
Give
That's
him
a different
give him my
podcast.
number
Yeah,
and
he can
okay.
work it
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But here's the thing. In that second, when I'm looking at the guy, he is sitting right next to a fan of mine that comes out to
Mhm.
shows, which is awesome. Nice to have a
Awesome.
fan, right?
Yeah.
And I think for a second that they're doing this to me on purpose. Like he's in
Mhm.
on it. The fan is said, hey, Joe likes to talk to the crowd.
Uh-huh.
When he does the glitter bit,
Right. So you were
wouldn't it be
Chris Rock
absurd?
with Will Smith approaching,
That's what I thought.
thinking
But
everything was
that's
funny.
that's not the case because I look over at my fan and my fan is like, because I think he realizes in my head is like, oh, Joe thinks I brought this guy and put him up to it. But my fan is like, So I
Uh-huh.
realize like, oh, this is real. This guy is really upset, right? So then he stands up, the pissed off guy, and he goes, "You're not funny." Now I get a double bird. Fuck you.
Uh-huh. And
Like
you know what I
really like
love? I mean,
he is
that's
angry.
and by the way, just to clue in the listeners, this stuff happens to him, Joe. This
Nobody
It,
else on
it's
the
a
show.
part of the I saw you get a drink thrown at you. That
Yep.
doesn't happen. It's a part of your shtick.
But I don't know what I do to elicit it, and I don't know why
It's
glitter
embrace
is
it.
is
You
so
just get
great.
yeah,
Yeah,
you just gotta
yeah.
love it. Shit happens to you. You are the guy that goes
Oh,
into
it's not
war.
over, Dan.
That
It's
I
not even
know,
over at all.
but I have to get that. That doesn't happen.
Glitter,
Very
glitter.
rarely. Never. I did comedy for 15 years. I never got flipped off. You'd think
You think you would have?
I
Yes.
would have.
Yeah. Yeah. So the guy now exits the theater. He goes off to stage left. I make some joke about, well, he's got to get back to Modesto,
Mm-hmm.
which of course,
Yeah.
classic comedy
Where
rule. Like,
yeah.
yeah, make fun of the town you
Don't
just made fun of.
don't mess with a sassy vet, man.
No, no, he
You
had
got
no
him.
idea. No idea.
Yeah.
Right. So
Nothing.
another lady in the side, she's like, you can throw glitter on me, So of
Mm-hmm.
course, I mean, I've got, I'm just glittering everybody. Meanwhile, unknown to me, right?
Uh-huh.
Brian Copeland, who's hosting the show, is off to the side, and the theater manager who runs the theater has run downstairs from the sound booth
Uh-huh.
to come and yell at Brian backstage, and he says to him words to the effect, using glitter in this theater was expressly forbidden in the contract. You're going to have to pay extra to clean this up. Brian is getting yelled at. Now,
Expressly, there was no glitters part of the
no glitter. And in
and you
hindsight,
had no
I had no
you
clue.
didn't
It never occurred because I've been doing the bit, but I've been doing the bit in comedy clubs, right?
mm-hmm,
And after the show, there's glitter all over the stage, and like, oh, that's funny, Joe. We
mm-hmm.
love you. Don't worry about it. We're still, a month
Yeah.
later, we're still finding glitter. We think of you. It's great,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's comedy clubs don't get cleaned. There's glitter, there's condoms.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. Well, I
Yeah.
guess in the theater world, because glitter
Okay.
can stick around for a long time and it's legendarily difficult to clean up. In a lot of contracts, they'll say for this production, you cannot use glitter.
Again and again, only you. Only Oh, I had no idea this could go so deep, but not surprised.
I didn't either. So I finished my set. Of course, I finished my set with one more glitter toss. And mind you, now, every time I'm throwing glitter, Brian and the theater manager are off to the side, like, oh my God. Oh my God. So when I say goodnight, I see Brian walking out, right? And he's got his microphone.
Mm-hmm.
And then behind him is the theater manager with a push broom,
Mm-hmm.
literally trying to clean up as much glitter as he can salvage. And I'm like, what's going on? Brian puts his hand over the mic and he just whispers into my ear really quickly, you're not supposed to use glitter. You fucked me. And then after the show, so many people came up to me and they're like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to ask around. This is a small town. I'm going to find out what was wrong with that gentleman. So I've
Castro
got my
Valley.
yeah, I got my glitterari. We're looking into it. They're working
Uh-huh.
on it. We're gonna track this guy down. I've never in my life seen anybody that angry over glitter.
And did he stick
Glitter.
around?
Oh no, no, he was gone. He was gone. He
Okay.
left. Yeah.
Okay, so why I want my son to learn critical race theory
Can I
in
ask how
school.
old your son is?
15.
15 years old now. Okay. So critical race theory. I hear those words and
Mm-hmm.
they are thrown around. They're thrown from the right as an insult and a hot
Mm-hmm.
button culture topic. I hear it from the left, but I don't hear it as defined as I think it probably
Okay.
could be.
Let's
Can
let's
you define it for me?
I will define it. It's sort of like, okay, the idea that there's a set of ideas, racial biases that is inherent in many parts of Western society, especially in its like legal and social institutions. Uh, and this is largely because that society was created by white people.
Yeah.
So the idea is, and again, so this ruffles a lot of feathers. Most people have read that much, done that
That's as
much
far as they've
reading,
gotten.
and
Yeah.
said, "Okay, I don't like it."
Yeah.
Because it's
Thank you, Wikipedia, but no.
yes, yes. So it's the idea that racial bias is inherent in
Right.
our
And people are
is
like, I don't have a bias.
exactly.
I
So
treat everyone the
right away,
same. Yeah.
right. So what I did was to prepare for this podcast. I read one book
One book.
One book
I'm
on critical
impressed.
race theory. So that's the level of my expertise.
That's pretty
I will
impressive.
admit that. I also was a sociology major in the 90s, for
Okay.
what that's worth. But I've read
Okay.
one book. But I will say, Joe, one book is a lot more than no books. You do.
You make a valid point.
Thank you.
One is more than none.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
not claiming to be any more of an expert on race than that, but 300 some pages on critical race
300.
theory, I
Wow.
believe, is
Wow.
more than nothing, is more than this Wikipedia thing I have in front of me defining it.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
As a white male, don't
Mm-hmm.
you have automatically more information about anything?
Mm-hmm. Exa- I assumed so.
Ah,
And here's what happened. I read the book and I learned something.
what?
Learned, so I was reading it, and I really did sincerely encourage anyone to read up because it's really interesting.
So let me ask you, like all joking aside, like if you
Yeah.
could boil it down to one thing, what did you learn? Like in the essence, what's the big takeaway that you learned?
Okay, I've got two for you,
Okay, I'll
and
take two.
it okay. Before I get to that, let me just
Are we going to a commercial break? What's happening?
before I get to that, Starbucks.
Glitter. Are you looking for a way to let the world know you're
By the
tolerant?
way, we could is glitter. Can Big Glitter get a hold of
Big
us?
glitter.
Big
Big
Glitter.
glitter's in trouble, Dan. Big
Yeah, and
glitter.
so we could do some advertising. Stop distracting, Joe. This is not
What
cool.
did you learn? What did you learn from
Okay.
critical race? The two big things.
First of all, critical race theory and just the approach of looking at race from a systemic point of view. The idea is it emerged in the 70s and 80s by legal scholars that were looking to address the fact that there was this huge disparity in terms of class, poverty, and mass incarceration. And basically, they were saying, and these are totally my words, our society is not an absolute meritocracy once Jim Crow was abolished.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree to, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or whatever, we've normalized these disparities.
Yeah.
For instance, I mean, let's be honest, when we look at prisons and see black and brown people, we're not surprised. We kind of go, yeah, prison.
Yeah. We definitely it's normalized. I would agree with that.
It's normalized.
Yeah.
So this is a group of scholars going, what's up with that? Let's
Yeah.
explain that. We're trying to explain that specifically, which is not necessarily in our life for
Yeah.
many of us.
Yeah.
So what we tend to do is we see a theory like this and we apply it to us,
Right.
right?
Right.
So the reaction is often, well, wait a minute. I work with a black guy. He's got the same job as I do. We get paid the same, and end of discussion.
Yeah. I like how I work with a black guy. He's got the same job. Come on.
But yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah. No, you're right. You're
that's
right.
how we
You're
take it
right.
in. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
White privilege. I have a job. He has a job.
Yeah.
He's got the same benefits as me.
Oh, you're
That's how.
right. You're right.
Just beginning with the fact that we're trying to explain these disparities of poverty and incarceration. It's not saying that there have been no gains made since slavery,
Right.
zero.
Right. Right.
It's saying that the gains and the changes in the law during the civil rights at times are token gestures, and that the status quo has this way of shifting and continuing on.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
it makes total sense in terms of civil rights, in terms of opportunities, in terms of progress. I think every scholars of color would say progress has been made, but I think they would also say that embedded deep in society, systemically,
Yeah.
we haven't pulled the roots of racism out yet. And as a
Yep.
result of that, there's a lot more people being held back that we're just not seeing. We're seeing it, we're seeing as a result of the prison population, but we're just writing it off as like, oh, that's normal.
Right.
Even like left-leaning people like, that's what
Right.
happens. And there's a huge segment of the population, more conservative driven, that yeah, it is racial, and they will say like, well, those people
Hmm.
should make better choices. But if
Right.
you're living in a neighborhood that's always experienced generational poverty, and you realize like, well, nothing has changed in 3 generations to make it easier for people to move out of that poverty, they're going to turn to the same old solutions that any human being would turn to.
Right. And those solutions have been presented for generations. That's
Yeah.
so, in other words, racism isn't just about using the N word and having a certain overt attitude, but it is sort of it's about looking the other way. It's about not solving problems. It's about a lack of awareness. For instance, I grew up in the 80s in the suburbs of Detroit. Now, Detroit, mass white flight from the suburbs. Business, sports teams, everything fled to the outskirts and left very, very hardworking minorities to deal with crime, poverty. And so critical race theory is simply saying, what's going on here?
Yeah.
How does that happen? I want my son to learn that.
How do you think it would impact, let's say your son, he's 15 now, and he
Mm-hmm.
learns about these things, and someday, your son's 30.
Mm-hmm.
How is it going to change how he moves through the
That's a
world?
great question. That's a great question. I would say two things. First of all, education is about learning, and he's going to learn that things aren't as they seem, that there's different layers and different nuances to
Yeah.
problems, and he's going to just be educated and lead a life of critical thinking. So that's one thing. And I wanted to throw this in there. It's called critical race theory. It's not called critical race manifesto. Nobody's telling you to do anything.
Yeah. And what I find fascinating though is the instant anger, the instant pushback,
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating to see people have critical race theory explained and
Mm-hmm.
then they just freak out. Well, this country's
Right,
different now and slavery's been abolished for
right.
forever. And I don't understand
So
why we got to keep talking about
right.
this. And
It's sort of like I stop talking about it
yeah, yeah,
because I'm going to have to look in the mirror and I'm going to have to look at some of my heroes.
yeah,
I'm going to I'm going to have to look at, let's say, a football coach that I from the 50s that I thought was kind of a racial pioneer because he let black people on the team, and realize that, well, it's not that simple. It was also in his interest to do that. And so it appears like we're trying to be negative. Why do I want my son to learn that? First of
yeah,
all, I want him to be educated
yeah,
and to look beyond his own experience, to be able to see other people's experience, to build empathy, to listen, to not just, that's to me, that's why we get educated. So we can
yeah.
look around critically. So for instance, if not, all we're left is with our experience. My Christian father-in-law, God bless him, has a lot to say about black people because of the 2 times he had a barbecue with black people. I'm not
Well, he's an
kidding.
expert now, Dan. He's an
That's his
expert.
experience.
Two is more than none.
Eh,
Okay. He's had an interaction with 2 black people. He can make an
All
informed
right.
opinion about the entire
I can't.
population of
I've
black
read
people.
one book. He's hung out with 2 black
That's
people.
pretty impressive.
I maybe he's got me beat, but the point is that's honestly how he sees it, and
Yeah.
he gives himself credit because he went in with
Yeah.
an open mind
Yeah.
and gave him a hot dog.
Give
I mean,
all this
he
and a hot
tried.
dog. He
He
tried.
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 He found something happened, and now he's
Oh,
now he. I don't know why. I forget. He felt like they were rude to his wife. Now he has formed an opinion. That's to
right.
me, I
Right.
want my, so just in general, I want my son to be educated.
Yeah.
But secondly, I would say if we get to the root of problems and actually look at them for what they are, we're more likely to have policies that are humane and effective. So
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so I got two follow-up
Yeah.
questions or maybe points, but so I think that the way that people who don't agree
Mm-hmm.
with the concepts of critical race theory, I think they feel like, well, it's being pushed on me through DEI,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. I don't know what
Diversity.
that means even, but I know what that means. It's being pushed on me through.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not speaking for them, but I
I
feel
know,
like
I know.
that's
I just,
diversity, equity, inclusion, right?
yeah.
So they feel like, hey, so I work a job, I don't have any
Okay.
biases, I'm a good person.
Hmm.
Why do I have to take an hour out of my day and go to this class and learn about cultural humility?
Right.
You
I
know?
would say my answer to that, because if you listen, your life will be enhanced. That's my experience. I mean, I would say something just to consider is why have that attitude? We've
Yeah,
had so I remember in the 90s working at companies that'll remain nameless, and we had was it sexual harassment training,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Things that our consciousness has grown. And everybody had a bad attitude about it. That's how we don't want to change. What do we got to can I wave hello or is that harassment blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And why do I have to take my time to learn something? Because you can learn something. And if you remain open,
Yeah.
you might learn something. So I guess I'm pro learning. And here's what I would say: go ahead if you want to be a hater and argue against it. Learn about it and then argue it on its merits.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you again, critical race theory is focused on these disparities. My numbers might be a little off, but even if they're a little off, in 2022, there were 13% black people and 32% black
Oh yeah. Yeah.
incarceration.
I mean, the percentage of how many
Right.
black people are in prison is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why is that? I want my son to investigate that. Why is that? Okay. Now, if you're racist, you're covered.
So racist, sit this one out.
You got a
You
reason. You're
you
good.
got a reason. You got a
Right. You're
reason. All
good.
right. I'm just a racist. All
Yeah.
right. Have a
You look
seat.
and you go, yeah, it's filled with.
As it should be.
But if you're not, what
What's going on there?
what's going on there? I think that's a very good. And so rather than being emotionally, I don't want to talk about it. If you want to argue against critical race theory, explain the disparities. What's your theory?
Yeah.
Like I said, I was brought up in the 80s in the Midwest.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, my parents, we never talked about it. I mean,
mhm,
I can't remember ever once
mhm,
any real conversation about other people,
mhm,
and again, it was a pretty homogenous, I grew up in a very white suburb.
mhm,
Everyone around us was mostly white, and but we would see things on TV. We would drive into Chicago,
mhm,
but not once was there any learning moment or opportunity, for my father or my mother to say anything or correct like what I look
mhm,
back on now, and realize maybe it weren't such harmless comments and jokes,
mhm,
like that could have been an opportunity for them to stop us and say like, well, if you think about other people like that, you're going to run into problems later in life. Now, thankfully for us, we
mhm.
moved and
Right,
San Francisco
right,
exposed us to a whole lot more.
right.
But I remember even like harmless jokes. Like I remember watching something with my dad and my younger brother about Yosemite and how bears were breaking into cars to get food.
Mhm,
And they go to a commercial and my dad just kind of goes, black bears.
mhm,
And, my brother and I laugh.
mhm,
And the only reason you laugh at a joke is because you think it's based on a truth. And
mhm.
we just, yeah, here's a black bear, black
Right.
people, right? And I don't think my dad was a bad guy. I was born in Florida, so that should excuse a lot of behavior,
Uh-huh.
right? But,
Turn.
Florida was in the news a lot because the governor kept fighting against the woke agenda. And one of the things that
Hmm.
he was just beating all the time was critical race theory. And the
Hmm.
thing that, they would interview people over and over and over again, and you'd see these white Florida people saying, I don't think anybody should have to feel bad about their race. The
Right.
idea that critical race theory is just there to make white people
Hmm.
feel bad about being white. What do you say to that?
I say that that's sort of created by talk and noise in the media. That's not what critical race theory is about. And I do think that white fragility is a real thing.
How
That
how dare you?
sorry, Joe.
How dare you?
I
Ah,
know
ah,
you with the Christmas lights all year round, and I don't mean to.
I am shocked.
In fact, there was a. I will go be so bold as to say critical race theory is saying the opposite.
Hmm.
It's saying it doesn't matter how you feel. In fact, our feelings can divert us by looking at the history from slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration to redlining. I'm not an expert. You get the
Yeah,
idea.
I get the
And
idea.
the attitudes that surround it. Detroit in the 80s. How did we explain? Literally, thriving suburbs, dying city.
How'd you
And
explain it?
two ways. You had people that, again, we had racists that kind of, and then we had my family, people like us, liberals. And I was thinking, what was our explanation? So, on the one
Yeah.
hand, we're sympathetic. It's not a good thing, but the explanation was, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, so not, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
ugh.
Yeah, and I
I
I'm
mean
with you.
that that was it. So, if you look at what I read of critical race theory, it's a little bit of a thumbing their nose a little bit at liberals
Mm,
who feel like they did their time in the
right,
60s and
right,
now we're good.
right,
It's
right.
basically saying it doesn't matter how you feel about this or what you see in the mirror. We're trying to explain these disparities.
So let
And
me
it's
ask
not
you the
it's
big
not
question.
shaming, it's not shaming anyone.
Let
That's
me
not.
ask you something. So I'm a white liberal,
Mhm.
right? And I want to feel like I'm doing more to
Mhm.
change society. What can I do? What do you want to see
Woo.
your son do?
What do I want to see my son do? I want to see
Yeah.
him have a real sense of community. I
Okay.
want to see him check his privilege,
Okay.
understand his privilege.
Right.
So it
But
might.
how do you turn that into an action? I guess that's what I like. I'm a big believer in it's great to have these
Right. No,
ideas and philosophies, but
that's
how
a
do you turn
great
that into an action?
this
How do you just do something small but effective? Like one
okay.
on one. How do I change? Because also, you also don't want that liberal that like goes up to a black person and puts their arm around them, right?
If you understand things
Yeah.
on a nuanced level, you're probably not going to vote for Donald Trump because that ain't nuance.
He's not going to help. No.
That's simple.
It's
That's
a it's the difference between black and
Yeah,
orange.
I just exactly. What did I hear today? Immigrant crime is way different than the crime we have here. What does that even mean? What
Yeah.
are you So if I have become educated, I'm more likely to go, what metric are you talking about? It sounds like you're just talking out of your ass.
Yeah.
So, for instance, in the 80s, a police decided to come down hard on gangs, meaning black people. Now, if I have no critical thought of this, I'm like,
Yeah.
good, lock them
Yeah.
up because what are you
Yeah.
going to do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, what happened? Mass incarceration, the LA riots, and no core solution
No.
to anything. And what is looked on, it was called Operation Hammer, mass violations of civil rights, walking around neighborhoods of African Americans and where are you going?
Yeah.
They had license to harass people. To me, that's a huge problem. How does that happen? Because of an overall simplistic attitude
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and
calling
a lack
anything,
of understanding that gangs is rooted in a lack of opportunity. And I know that pisses people off. And
yeah. It
now
is though. It is. It is.
I don't have so I don't have the, but I want my son.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to add that's important, and this is okay, I might be splaining here. This is my sense of it because I'm
That's
not a
this is the place to splain, buddy.
this is where we splain. Critical race theory, I think, approaches the concept of race in a much more useful way. It's not about who you are and who you are at heart and that you have a bad heart and the pejoratives you use. It's about race awareness.
Yeah.
And the more awareness we have, again, Native Americans were awarded some of their land back, right? Now, does that equalize things from the fact that they were here first? No.
We're even now.
Yeah. So,
You
no, I'm
got
not saying,
casinos.
yeah, you guys
All
get
right.
blackjack, we get the rest. But that did happen. That was a bit of a reparation.
Yeah.
And it happened, I think, because at least we had a basic understanding of history.
Yeah. Well, you
In order
see,
to have policies that at least go in the right direction, we
I'm
need
finding the
some.
flaw here now, Dan.
Go
Well,
ahead.
you're saying that
Go ahead, white boy.
we you're saying that for people to truly appreciate what critical race theory is all about is they need to be open to learning history.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's one thing that Americans will fight you on, it's
It's
about learning their
their
history.
history,
They
even if
don't
it
want to
makes
learn
you
it.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It is not,
History should make you uncomfortable. If you're
yes,
not uncomfortable
right,
learning American history, you're not learning
right.
history. Yeah.
And that's why, in a lot of, so getting to the concept that kind of blew me away, which might be basic to a lot of people, interest convergence. What does that mean to you? Interest
Interest
convergence.
convergence. So
Yes.
does my interest and another person's interest converge in some way to where it
Right.
can magnify something for the better or take it away?
Right. So basically, we have an inherently biased system, and you have interests converging to move that status quo forward. Sometimes it's in the interest of the system to make concessions, whether it be Brown versus the Board of Education. It said, and it's not to take away from the incredible civil rights movement, but the idea is interests converge to give minorities more rights, but it's in the interest, still in the interest of the status quo.
Yeah, if more people are participating in
Right.
the financial
So
system has more customers.
right. So
Yeah,
it's still, so what I find so interesting is it's you have a status quo that mutates and shifts, but it's still driving forward.
right, right.
And of course, I want my son to be open to that because that's where the truth lies. Like right now, so with one thing there's the other. It would be like it's like saying you had Obama but then you had Trump. How did those that wasn't a total coincidence. How do those things support
Man, that's a whole podcast right
each other?
there.
But do you see my
Yeah,
point?
I see your point. I see your point. Underneath every day, you would like to see some incremental progress towards things getting better, towards people
Yeah,
understanding. I mean, to quote Martin Luther King, right? And this is a paraphrase, the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice,
right.
right? So meaning like, look, we got to keep working, and
Yeah.
sometimes things are going to fall back. Some things are going to move
Yes.
forward. Sometimes you're going to get surprised by your successes. Sometimes you're going to be let down by your losses. But in the end, we are trying to move forward.
Right.
And yeah, at the end of the day, facts are just facts. We can
Right.
either ignore them or we can get upset by them. And if I'm
Yeah.
hearing you right, to summarize, you just really want your son to grow up to be a big crying snowflake. Is that correct? Is that?
Don't you ever talk about my little Charlie like that.
Hey, Dad, come on
By the
in.
way,
Look at my macrame
that reminds me,
package.
he's got taekwondo.
Oh
He's gonna
shit.
mad. He's gonna be mad at me.
Oh, you got to pick him up?
Yeah. No.
Oh.
All right. So yes,
I'm
I
not just
want
beating you up,
I
Father. I'm
want
beating you
my
up with
son
another
to
people's
learn
art.
nuance. I want him to learn, even though it's gray area.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's
But it's
um,
beautiful. That really is. I mean, you want your son to be a fully realized human being. You want
yeah,
him to participate in society. You want him to think for himself. You want him to be
yeah,
critical.
yeah,
Let me ask, okay, this is a trippy question.
yeah.
Do you think there might come a moment where your adult son comes to you
Hmm.
and says to you, Dad, you're just old-fashioned on this idea?
Probably, yeah, probably. That's what I did to my dad. My dad is
Wow.
a
Yeah.
classic kind of wasn't quite a hippie, but a boomer,
Yeah.
60s liberal guy. And I remember when I was in college, I was like, dude, you're out of it. No, I felt like I was walking the walk more than
Yeah.
him. Sure.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And again, this big anti-woke fear. An 8-year-old came home from school and said, "Mommy, am I racist?" Oh my God. My kid asked a question.
I
And now I'm gonna
yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
like that's a mass problem.
Right.
And by the way,
School is your 8-year-old going to?
maybe whatever. Okay. So
Yeah.
I have an answer to that. And
Let's
I have an answer to that.
let's have it. Let's have it.
Here's the answer. Son or
Yes.
daughter, you know what? I think that we work hard not to be intentionally racist, but we always have to keep our eyes open to being sensitive about what we might be saying or what we might be witnessing. So race is an awareness that we're always working hard. So no, you're not a bad person and you're not trying to be racist, but we always want to work at it. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that's a good enough answer. I mean,
Yeah.
I also think, yeah, I mean, you know what? I think that's a good enough answer for an 8-year-old, right?
It's a little heady for an 8-year-old, but
Well, I
you
mean,
see my
first of
point.
all, that I've heard that example too, and I'm like, what 8-year-old is,
Yeah,
coming home and saying
I
that,
question that too.
but
What
I
school?
question
I
that too.
don't think
I do think there's probably have been some instances where maybe a junior high student, a
right.
high school student is coming home and being like, are we racist?
Yeah.
And then
So answer the
unfortunately,
question.
yeah, yeah,
Talk about
answer
it.
the question,
Talk
but
about it.
answer the question thoughtfully and don't just get angry that, oh my God, did they make you feel bad?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the again, I think from what I've read of critical race theory, it would kind of say, well, the point is it's not about you.
right.
It's about what's going on around you and how much awareness do you want to have of it. So when you're voting and you're participating, you might bring a deeper truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, I want that. I want that for my son, Joe.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope your son gets that. I think his father is a good man and is
Thank
gonna
you. And I'm
do
not even
everything that he can.
trying to be good. I'm just
Yeah.
that's what I take.
So in summary,
Yes,
you read a book.
I read a book.
Yeah.
End of story. I read a
uh
book.
you want
ADHD
your
brain read a book. I'm proud of
you
myself.
read a book almost 300 pages long.
I read a book.
That's really what we're saying here. This is
Right.
all just
I'm
a
bet.
big
Yeah.
way
So
to
in
say I
summary,
read
I'm
something.
better than
I'm better than you.
than
Yeah.
most of you. I read
Thereby
a
kind of
book.
defeating the whole point of
Hmm.
critical race theory. But
Right.
anyway, now a white guy gets it,
I got
America.
it.
And isn't
I
that
got
what
it.
it's
If you
all
got any
about? A
questions, just
white guy gets it.
yeah.
If you need it explained, look up Rothenberg.
Rothenberg. I got
Yeah.
it.
All right. I think that's actually
I think we're good. Joey
I think
close
we're good,
call.
buddy. That's
Okay, we'll
it.
see you. And by the way, stay tuned because what are you doing?
I'm trying to make
Oh,
glitter
glitter.
without actually throwing it.
Okay, so glitter.
Don't throw glitter on stage
Don't throw glitter on stage.
unless you've made a
Tune
contractual.
in because we're going to dig into trans youth and what is going on in therapy office. We're going to dig through it. We're going to explain it. We're going to get there.
Okay,
We're going to
let's
be
do it.
uncomfortable, Joe.
Well,
But
I'm
we'll see
frequently
you.
uncomfortable, so I'm there.
Okay, we'll see you next week, everybody.